Hey, welcome to Winning Wednesdays with Pear VC. At Pear, we've been fueling the next generation of tech startups for over 10 years. And working closely with founders since the beginning of their journeys, we've seen again and again that a good product isn't enough to build a meaningful business. You must also have a winning strategy and go to market. Enter Winning Wednesdays with Pear VC, a monthly webinar series on go-to-market topics with actionable insights for founders and teams that are building from 0 to 1. Our webinars are broken up into two parts. Part one is 30 minutes or so of presentations from a guest with go-to-market expertise, and part two will be a lively Q&A. And today we're thrilled to have Bob Tinker here with us, who will walk us through what it means to find go-to-market fit and how to build a repeatable playbook. Bob has a long and impressive resume. I feel like if I gave a true overview of everything you've done, we'd be here forever. But he's a repeat entrepreneur and perhaps best known for being the founding CEO of Mobile Iron from 2008 to 2016, from initial idea to IPO in 2014, and over 12,000 enterprise customers and 150 million of revenue. During the 5-year period from 2010 to 2014, Mobile Iron was named the fastest growing technology company in the world and ranked #1 in Deloitte's Fast 500 index. Prior to Mobile Iron, Bob was the VP of Business Development at enterprise wireless pioneer Airspace, which Cisco acquired in 2005 for 450 million. Inspired by the question, what do you wish you could tell yourself 15 years ago as a newbie entrepreneur? Bob co-authored the book series Survival to Thrival, the enterprise startup guide. That's #1 on Google search for enterprise startup book and available on Amazon, by the way, folks. Bob's second book, Change or Be Changed, tackles the question, why is building a startup so hard on the leaders? And the answer is unlearning. I'm eager to hear your insights today, Bob. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure we'll have a ton of stuff to dive into. So, audience, I invite you to turn on your cameras, engage with Bob as he presents, pop questions into the chat as he goes along. We will get to a really great, robust session of Q&A at the end. And I cannot wait to hear all your insights, Bob. Thank you so much for joining us. Without further ado, the floor is yours.
All right. Thanks, Anna. Hi, everybody. It's nice to see everybody on Bob. Let me go ahead and pop up my share here. But for a little context, I was sitting in your shoes in 2002, in 2008, and believe it or not, I am now sitting in your shoes again. As a glutton for punishment, I'm back at building a startup, and we're in the process of trying to find product market fit, and we haven't found it yet. So putting my own lessons to practice here. So look, please interrupt me. Happy to make this sort of as interactive and dive into whatever sort of most interesting and useful for you guys at this stage. But let's go ahead and kick off. So the whole punchline here is how do we unlock growth? In Silicon Valley, we talk a lot about finding product market fit, but there's actually a really important thing that happens that is, unfortunately, happens more often than you think, which is why do so many B2B startups find product market fit and theoretically check that box, never unlock growth? Product market fit is supposed to mean you unlock growth, but it turns out it's not the case. So, the thing that, I think like in my current startup and where you guys are all right now, we're paddling. We're paddling really hard. We're out there just trying to find early customers, figure out urgent use cases, build the product to meet their needs. And it's an absolute crap ton of work and it's really hard. It's sort of like paddling and surfing. The thing that you really want to get to, though, is feeling the momentum. And that's the shift from paddling to surfing. And the difference between that is how do you find what I call go-to-market fit? You've all heard about product market fit. Lots of people talk about product market fit. But the thing that I would encourage you guys to be thinking about is how do you also find go-to-market fit? So, the thing here is that product market fit's a huge milestone. Like if you guys don't find it, or if my current startup, we don't find product market fit, you don't earn the right to get to the next stage. But like I said, sort of the challenge here is that product market fit doesn't mean you unlock growth. And so this missing link, which is something that is like when I first started in Silicon Valley, wasn't even a thing, is go-to-market fit, which is how do you build a repeatable sales playbook, find and win customers over and over again? I'll say that again. How do you build a repeatable playbook to find and win customers over and over again? And, right now, like where I'm at in my startup, and I'm sure where you guys are, is in the founder hero selling stage. And look, that's actually what you need to do to find product market fit, is be in sort of founder hero selling mode. And, whether you're Superman or Superwoman, I don't really care. But, that transition from founder hero selling to building a scalable, repeatable sales model is what it means to find go-to-market fit. Because the problem is founder hero selling does not unlock growth. You can find product market fit with founder hero selling. But you can't find go-to-market fit with founder hero selling. And what ends up happening if you don't find go-to-market fit is you'll get to like maybe 500K of ARR, maybe $1 million in ARR, but then it starts to tail off. And you want to talk about a super frustrating time in life. It's that you found product market fit, you hire a bunch of salespeople or invest a bunch of money and go to market or spend a bunch of money on marketing, and growth doesn't happen. You want to have a grumpy board meeting? That's a grumpy board meeting. And that's what we're going to talk about here. How do you find it? What do you do? Talk about some mistakes I made. Just share some lessons learned on this. So I'll first start off with like the fun part of this, which is, what does it feel like to find go-to-market fit? So this is a slide from my time at Mobile Iron. On the bottom are quarters. On the vertical is the number of new enterprise customers we added. And you can sort of see in like Q4 2009, I think we added like 10 customers. And then in Q1 2010, I think we added like 25. Like we had found product market fit. We were starting to sort of turn the wheels a little bit, but it was still a struggle. In Q3 2010, we found product market fit and giddy up. You see us going from like 20 new customers a quarter to 80 to 200 to 300 to eventually we were adding 500 new enterprise customers in a quarter, which is absolutely nuts. That's the difference between having go-to-market fit and not having go-to-market fit. And, for me personally, it's some of the most fun you'll ever have in building a startup is when you start to feel that momentum. This is what it looked like for us, and this is what it can look like for you guys. So I'm sure you're probably asking yourself, okay, cool, Bob. How does it start? How do I do this? So let's talk through that. So big mistake number one I already hit on is founders cannot find go-to-market fit by themselves. And the reality is that you guys as founders have what I call sort of founder magic pixie dust. You can get meetings with prospects that regular salespeople or go-to-market people can't. You can say things in meetings that regular people can't. Your ability to sell and win a customer is actually not a real world test for finding go-to-market fit. You can certainly find product market fit and figure out urgent use cases and figure out you have a lane to run in, but it's not the same thing. And so that's mistake number one, is in order to find go-to-market fit, you need to actually have some regular go-to-market people in the building that work with you on it. So, okay, that brings to mistake number two, which is, all right, I need a salesperson, so I'm going to go hire Braveheart or Joan of Arc to go hire a VP of sales to go conquer the mountain. No, don't do that. Because instead what you need is more of a Davy Crockett type character. Because in the beginning of building your repeatable go-to-market playbook, you have to find the path through the woods. It's not about scaling the sales team to go take on the enemy. You got to figure out the path first. And so I call these Davy Crockett go-to-market people. They're early stage, they're scrappy, they figure stuff out, they try things, they kind of make shit up occasionally. And that's okay. Because one of the things that you want them to do is Figure out what is the urgent pain. How do you engage with a customer or prospect? How do you tell a story on a web page? How do you get the right conversion rates? It's a lot of iteration and experimentation. And then once you find your path through the woods, then you can go hire Joan of Arc. Then you can go hire Braveheart, where you bring in the VP of sales. And oh, by the way, there's an interesting little anecdote here. No grade A VP of sales or VP of marketing is going to be the first sales or marketing person in your building. They're just not. Grade A heads of sales and marketing want to know that people that have been there before them been able to be successful before they're joined. So in many ways, your ability to hire a grade A go-to-market head is going to be dependent on you having one or two Davy Crockett's that have been able to prove that things can work. So that leads me to sort of mistake number 3, and I made this one in spades, which is that when you hire your first Davy Crockett reps, in terms of setting their sales comp, you're like, well, their job is to go win ARR. So I'm going to set their sales comp to be like, go win ARR. And turns out that's not the right thing to do. Because what you're looking for at this stage is, number 1, finding urgency. Number 2, can they build a pipeline? And then number 3, can they close deals? So there's actually 3 things you want from them. And if you just comp your early Davy Crockett's based on closing deals, that's exactly what they're going to go do. So turns out, like, what ended up making it better for us was changing our sales comp for our first 2 Davy Crockett's to be a combination of 3 things, and you can sort of weight them however you want. 1 is closed ARR, because that's still important. But 2 was pipeline, that there's not just 1 or 2 deals they can close, but there's actually a pipeline behind that. And 3 is, I actually set an MBO for the early go-to-market team to start drafting the early go-to-market playbook. Like, what is it that they were doing that was being successful? And you can figure this out from Gong videos. You can figure this out from AI recording tools, whatever it is. But like, you got to find the pattern. And so that's where we're going to go next. So when this happens is sort of at the tail end of finding product market fit, you're starting to engage with prospects and customers, and there's a bunch of iteration going on. And you're winning deals, you're losing deals, customers are giving you feedback, prospects are giving you feedback, there's stuff that's working, there's not working. This is your opportunity to listen. During this stage from product market fit, you've got 1 or 2 early Davy Crockett's in the building. You're trying to find the repeatable recipe to scale and do go-to-market. This is where the universe is teaching you a lesson. So listen, because what you'll find is that there are things that work, things that don't work. And I'll talk a little bit more about finding the patterns here, but you have a lot of data popping out of this part of your go-to-market process, even early on. This is where you can start to find the patterns. So what are the 3 parts of finding go-to-market fit? Number 1, urgency. You got to find something that actually answers the question, why buy now and not 6 months from now? Because actually your biggest competition is typically do nothing. Number 2, you got to figure out your go-to-market model. I always found this incredibly annoying and frustrating, so I'll talk a little bit about this. And then number 3, build the repeatable go-to-market playbook. These 3 things fit together. You get these right, that's how you find go-to-market fit and actually transition from checking the box on product market fit to setting the stage to unlocking growth, which is actually why we are all here. Okay, so one of the hard things about being an early stage founder out there trying to win customers is you're like lumberjacks in the forest trying to chop down trees. Let me go win this deal. Let me go win that deal. Let me go win this deal. Let me go win that deal. And frequently, and I know this happens to me, so, is that you sometimes miss the forest for the trees. And you miss the patterns because you're so focused on this tree or that tree. And so I have a very specific recommendation coming up on this, but the whole thing you're trying to find here is urgency. Like, how do you find that thing that gets customers to say, I need this now? And I like talking about this through the lens of what I call the bullhorn, which is you need 2 things to come together. One is, hey, we've got this big destination that we get to, this big strategic outcome, Mr. Miss Customer. That's great. But you also need to answer the question of sort of why buy now? Those two things need to come together. And often as an early stage startup, you've got a pretty good handle on what's the big outcome you're aiming at. But if you haven't figured out what's the urgent pain for why buy now, you're not going to find good a market fit. And was it mobile irons? So we were very early in the days of mobility. I know you're all going to laugh about this, but like smartphones were new. But we built this like security and management policy engine that you could manage and secure any mobile device. And we were super proud of that. And we could enable enterprises to adopt mobility as a first-class citizen in their workplace. And a lot of customers were like, that's cool someday. There just wasn't urgency. They're like, that's a cool direction. Yeah, we can totally see that we're going to end up there someday. But no urgency. So it turned out two of my Davy Crockett reps, one was Britt, again, another one was named Mike, started to figure out where the urgency was. And we used to walk into customers and be like, hi, we're Mobile Iron. We have the security and management policy engine that allows you to enable mobile as a first-class citizen. And everybody's like, cool. Turned out what Britt found was the iPhone was new, work. And he was asking the question of prospects, what else is bothering you right now? And the answer was like, well, this big security management policy engine, that's cool someday. The thing I'm getting in trouble for right now is, dude, can you help me with the iPhone? My exec team wants to use it at work and we're telling them no. And they're saying, if I can't find a way to allow them to use iPhone at work, I'm going to get fired. That's urgency. So it turned out like this big giant vision we had of like enabling mobile as a first-class citizen was a cool destination, but it had no urgency to it. The dude, can you help me with iPhone? Had urgency to it. That was the why buy now. So by being the link up these two things, you got to line up the pain with the wave. Like if we had not figured out the why buy now, we never would have found good market fit. We never would have unlocked growth. And this is sort of one of the challenges of sort of being an early stage startup is you're doing it to unleash a big change on the market. But you got to find that seed corn of what's the thing that creates urgency. And be open-minded about it because it may be actually something ironically kind of small in your view. That's totally okay. So let's talk about picking the go-to-market model. So the first thing was line up with urgency. So we talked about, the Mobile Iron journey on that. The picking go-to-market model, this used to drive me nuts. Like people would be like, oh, you need to do product-led growth. That's the cool thing. Do product-led growth. You don't need any salespeople. And then you got other people like, oh, do marketing-led. Other people, oh, sales-led. It's going back to that. Oh, you're doing AI-led sales. And you'd ask people, well, how do you pick the go-to-market model? And the answers I got was like, well, if your deals are big, you have to do one. Or I just never found like a good rubric for this, but it turns out I've actually figured one out. So the most important part of this is there's no one right or wrong go-to-market model. There's only one that's right for you, your company, and your business and your customers. Do not let your investors force you down a path of go-to-market model that doesn't match the way your customers want to buy. Like something can be sexy, but it doesn't mean it's the right one for you. And so there's sort of roughly three big categories. One is sales-led, which is what we did at Mobile Iron. We actually had sales reps go talk to customers and win deals. You have marketing-led, where you generate leads online and then do freemium trials and get people to try things. But then you eventually have a rep, like an inside rep, call them. The third option is product-led, which is something like, SendGrid or lots of companies now, basically, Atlassian, whoever it is, where they don't really have any salespeople. They just do like effectively sales through the internet or other tools. So how to pick between these? It's hard, but it turns out I figured out one thing that at least seemed to be a pattern here. And you got to pick one go-to-market model to start. You could try different things, but you got to pick one. Small companies can't run multiple go-to-market models to really find go-to-market fit. So the thing we figured out, and I think this is a general rule that you should like write down in your notebook somewhere or in your notepad, which is the way to figure this out is pick the go-to-market model that matches how your customer decides to buy. And I'm going to say that again, and there's a very important word in there, how your customer decides to buy. It's not the physical process of how do they order. It's not the where did they find you. It turns out everybody has a cognitive process for making a purchase decision. You do as a consumer, right? You look at something, you look online, you do reviews, whatever. There's a cognitive process that people go through before they buy. Companies do the same thing. There's a committee decision, which is, hey, there's 6 or 7 people involved. You got a bunch of people together. You know what? If you the way your customer decides to buy is a committee decision, you're going to be sales led. I don't care what anybody else tells you. You're going to be sales led because that's the job of the salesperson is to coordinate that committee led decision. That's where we were at Mobile Iron because we had a mobile person, we had the security team, we had the apps team. Like there was just multiple people involved. We couldn't have done it any other way. The middle column is if your buyer and decider are effectively 2 people. And this is a lot of SaaS applications actually fall into this bucket, where there's sort of an initial user or sponsor or buyer, and then there's somebody who approves it. In that world, you can do marketing led, where you sort of do marketing to drive leads and get people to do free trials, and then an inside sales rep calls to try and convert. That's when their buyer and decider are effectively 2 people. The third option is product led growth. This is when your buyer and decider are actually the same person. Typically somebody in engineering, could be somebody in go-to-market, whatever it is. And they basically are like, oh, I want that. I'm going to buy that. And, you know, I think the guidance I was given was like, well, it depends on whether you're selling a $20,000 product or a $100,000 product or a $500,000 product, where it lands. And I think that's kind of true because bigger ticket items tend to be more committee sales. Smaller ticket items tend to be more like product-led sales. But it turns out that's more of a symptom than the root cause, because let's say you got a low ticket price product, but it's a committee-led purchase process, the way the customer decides to buy. That might actually mean you have a bad business. Like that actually may not be solvable with picking a go-to-market. That actually may be a core issue with your business, that you have a small ticket price item that has a complex purchasing process. So like your go-to-market engine says, hey, we should be, highly efficient with small ticket items, but the way your customers buy is not. So that's sort of this core thing about picking go-to-market depends on how the customer actually decides to buy. And you remember that slide I showed where you have like, when do you look at product market fit, go-to-market fit? Like all those conversations you're having with early prospects, pay attention to how they're making the decision to buy. Like it's interesting. You'll see differences and you'll be like, oh, well, Mike just decided to buy. Or, oh, Mary sort of did the trial, but she had to get her boss involved. Or, oh my God, there's like 6 people that you have to call this big meeting, get everybody together. Like just pay attention to how your customers are going through the cognitive process of buying. All right, so that was 1, line up the urgent wave. 2, select the go-to-market model. Let's go to building the repeatable go-to-market playbook. This is one of the biggest mistakes I made in the early days of Mobile Iron. This is a picture of me in January 2010. No gray hair, no beard. A little weird to look at that. So the biggest mistake I made at this point when I was in your shoes is that I basically said, isn't a go-to-market playbook basically just a good PowerPoint pitch? I just need a better PowerPoint pitch and maybe some good sales tactics. And I bet some of you probably said that in your head. Isn't a go-to-market playbook just like good PowerPoint pitch or some good demo video? The answer is no, it's not. So the reality of your go-to-market playbook is it becomes effectively the operating system of your go-to-market motion. How do you find and win customers over and over and over again? A PowerPoint pitch is just one step on that process, but your go-to-market playbook becomes the operating system, your go-to-market motion. And it turns out, we found out there's actually a really interesting byproduct of this, which it turns out it's an incredibly powerful tool to align the enterprise, the entire company behind your go-to-market. And I'll talk a little more about this. This was a really fascinating, sort of very powerful side effect. And so what does a go-to-market playbook look like? So when I was doing some work after Mobile Iron, I met with a VP of sales for a security company in Seattle. He's like, hey, Bob, let me show you my go-to-market playbook. And he literally sent me a 30-page Word document. 30 pages. I was like, Zach, dude, that is not a go-to-market playbook. That is a go-to-market brain dump. He's like, well, yeah, I just wrote down everything I've ever learned. It's like, that is not a go-to-market playbook. What a go-to-market playbook is, it's able to be distilled down to 1, maybe 2 slides or 2 pages, no more than that. And the test that you're onto it is that your go-to-market team like pins it up over their computer at their desk, because it's how they find and win deals over and over again. And turns out this is also super important with a lot of the new AI-enabled sales tools that are coming out, which is your go-to-market playbook becomes the core corpus of what you're actually teaching the models about how to enable your sales team. If you don't have it distilled down to this point, like not only can you not teach humans, you can't teach AI either. So how do you build your go-to-market playbook? This first part, it sucks. I'm just going to warn you. It's just a grind, but you got to do it. So in order to find the patterns, you just got to do what I call the deal grind. You got to grab whoever on your team is spending time talking to customers and prospects. It's probably you, maybe one of your Davy Crockett reps, could be somebody in marketing, whoever it is. And you literally need to pick 20 deals, a mix of ones that you won and ones that lost and ones that froze. And you grind through every deal. And the reason why this is important is that the patterns are often distributed as anecdotes in lots of people's heads. And being able to pull everybody together and go through this, all of a sudden you'll start to see the patterns. So, you can come up with whatever your grid is on this, but we divide it up into what are happy customers we won and churn customers we lost. Who's the buyer? Why did they care? Like, why did they talk to us? Why did they do an eval with us? Like, just take 20 deals and grind through this and lock everybody in a room to do it. It's a giant pain in the butt, but trust me, this will start to show you the patterns. And one of the things that'll often pop out here, which is another key part of building your go-to-market playbook, is finding the wows. You guys are probably like, what's a wow? What do you mean by that? So it turns out I'm sure you guys have been in meetings with prospects where you're talking about this, talking about that, talking about this, talking about that. And then there's something you say where the body language of your prospect changes. You can see it, you can feel it. And they kind of lean in and they're like, wait, tell me more about that. You can see their body language change. That's a hint or a clue that you're onto a wow. And there's typically 2 types of wows. There's a date wow and a merry wow. The date wow is the thing that gets people to take you to the next step. Like, hey, let me go get 2 of my colleagues in. They'd like to see this thing. Right? That's the date wow. The merry wow is the thing that gets their boss or whoever needs to approve it to be like, yeah, this is cool. I want to invest in this. So look for the wows. And one of the other lessons about wows is you or your engineering team doesn't get to pick the wows. Your customers do. So turns out, you remember how back at Mobile Iron, I talked about this security management policy engine that could enable mobile to be a first-class citizen? Our engineers were super proud of that. We spent a lot of time working on that. Turns out that wasn't the wow. The wow was something called selective wipe, which was the ability to wipe your work content off your phone, but leave your pictures and music alone. We actually ended up co-developing it with Apple, believe it or not. It's kind of the way the industry works now. But this selective wipe feature was something where people are like, wow, let me go get some colleagues to come in. My engineers were so annoyed that that was the wow. Because it wasn't that hard to build. It wasn't. And it wasn't the thing they were most proud of either. But it was the thing that got the customer to engage. So, all right. Once you find the patterns, there's 3 steps to build your go-to-market playbook. The first one is lay out the customer journey, which is, whatever the customer's journey is from the first time you talk to them to when they say yes to when you make them successful. And the important here is this needs to represent the physics of the customer journey. This is not where you pick the sales forecasting stages that come out of Salesforce. This needs to represent like what's the actual physics of the customer journey. And so, an example of a sales-led journey looks like this. An example of a marketing-led journey looks like this, where you have a webinar, nurture, free trial, drive usage, inside sales, purchase, commit. If it's a product-led go-to-market, you have sort of different stages of the customer journey, whatever it is. These are examples. You just need to build yours. And it needs to reflect the physics of your customers or your prospects' journey. So that's part 1. You sort of do that across the top. Part 2, what are the things that people say and do in each stage of your playbook? This is where you need to put the wows. This is where you need to put the PowerPoint presentations, like one bullet point inside one of these meetings. And, I told you about one of the wows we had was the selective wipe. The second wow we had, which was actually the Merry Wow, was something called the Enterprise App Store, which is we enabled enterprises to effectively have their own private app store to be able to distribute applications. So the interesting thing about these 2 features, these were 2 of the things that really got customers to move forward with us. They were our wows, but they weren't frequently used. One of the mistakes that, like, if we had evaluated doing selective wipe in the enterprise app store based upon feature usage, we never would have done them. I'll say that again. Like, if we had evaluated these 2 capabilities that turned out key parts of our go-to-market to get customers to take the next step based on usage, we never would have done them. And this is one of the, like, a core lesson for me on finding go-to-market fit and this repeatable playbook is never confuse selling with installing. And it's often tough for engineering teams to sort of get their heads around because, of course, the engineering team wants to work on stuff that people use all the time. It's also just as important to build features that get customers to engage with you and to be interested to take the next step. It is a totally legitimate high value add for your company to do things like that. The next piece about building your go-to-market playbook is at the end of each stage, you need to have a very specific ask. Hey, at the end of the first meeting, we'd like to have a second meeting and do a deep dive. At the end of the second meeting, like, hey, let's do a POC or POV. Or, if you're doing an automated go-to-market, it's the same thing. They're call to actions, whatever it is. Like, you just need to have a very crisp exit ask at the end of each stage. And, I'll tell you sort of one of the mistakes that we made in our first go-to-market playbook is we stopped with when we won the deal. That turned out to be a mistake because the playbook shouldn't stop until the customer is actually successful. Like, we kind of threw it over the wall to post-sales to go implement the customer. We should have made that part of the go-to-market playbook because it turns out what happened is until the customer is actually live and successful in using your product, like, it's not really a win. It's just a signed contract. So, lesson learned. Okay. Remember how I mentioned there's an interesting side effect of doing a go-to-market playbook? This was it. It turned out that as we defined what are the different tools and things that the rest of the company built to support each stage of the playbook, it was really powerful for the team because the marketing team saw how what they were working on tied to the go-to-market playbook. The engineering team saw how what they were doing tied to the go-to-market playbook. Because one of the things, like, in running a company is people are like, oh, why should we do that? I want to work on things that are important. It's like being able to see how what you're working on connects to the go-to-market playbook was incredibly powerful for the team. And when you get it right, your metrics effectively come for free. You literally watch deals go from stage to stage to stage to stage and why they go in, why they go out. So this was our go-to-market playbook at Mobile Iron. This was it. Like, this is the actual document. This got us from 0 to 10 million of ARR, maybe actually probably closer to 20. This one page. There's another one that been working with a SaaS company. This is their go-to-market playbook. It's a grind to build it, but building this one page, maybe 2-page go-to-market playbook that has what are the stages of your go-to-market customer journey? What do people say and do at each stage? What are the tools and deliverables that help them? What are the exit criteria? Like, there is no other way to build a repeatable go-to-market. There's no other way to hire a sales rep and be like, hey, do this and you'll win deals. There's no other way to really train an AI model to be able to help your team. Like, you got to be able to pull something like this together. And so when you get these 3 parts working together, you figured out urgency, you figured out where on that go-to-market model spectrum you are. If you get your go-to-market playbook nailed down, it's a blast. Like, remember that graph of Mobile Iron going, woo? Like, that was our transition from paddling to surfing. And that was when you start to feel the momentum. Because not only do you start to see deals come in, but you start to see the wins happen and you just start to feel the momentum. The gear ratio in your business changes. And that's when not only have you found product market fit, but you found go-to-market fit. And I'm actually sort of getting the chills just thinking about it. If I think back to like when we found that at Mobile Iron, like, it's some of the most fun you'll ever have in building a startup is when you start to feel it. So with that, survive well, thrive well. Good luck with building your startups. And at survivaltothrival.com, there's a bunch of free resources to do this. The books are available on Amazon, but we actually open source the books, so the PDFs are available to download. There's videos you can watch, tools you can download. Like, this is all about sharing stuff I wish somebody had talked to me about when we first started our company 15 years ago. So with that, what do you guys want to talk about?
That was amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, you're getting comments here. Great deck. Thank you for these insights. That was phenomenal. Thank you. I want to start. We have a number of questions. There was a question that came up about a template or
Oh,
example.
shoot, I missed the chats.
Don't worry.
Crap.
Don't
Okay.
worry. We'll catch you up. But a template example of a playbook for PLG.
Let's see. I do believe we have one on survivaltothrival.com. Let me.
You don't have to find it now. If it's there, we can
Okay.
also.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's one there. The key is just, again, sort of getting the stages right and getting what's done at each stage and building the workflow. The other thing that I noticed is that, particularly for PLG, you need to be kind of open-minded about what the stages are, because sometimes you need to split stages into 2 to be able to sort of get better instrumentation for what's actually happening. I'll give you a good example. In a PLG world where free trials and POVs are really important, that often there's hey, they signed up for it, but they never got activated. Like, creating 2 different stages, one for, hey, yes, I said I wanted to do a free trial, and then is the free trial actually activated? Like, some companies would combine those 2 into one stage, but it's actually better to separate those into 2 stages because you want to see who's like where they're getting stuck. So be open-minded and let sort of the way your customer journey stages are defined evolve over time. Don't be dogmatic about, hey, we started with 7 stages. We must stay with 7 stages.
Good point. Okay, Charu and Julie had sort of similar questions. Ajay's raising his hand. Let's start. I don't know, Charu and Julie, do you guys want to ask your own questions? I'm happy to ask or read it from the chat. You got it? Okay, go ahead, Charu. Why don't we start with yours?
Oh, sorry, I was gonna say, yeah, it's totally fine if you wanted to paraphrase.
Okay.
Thanks.
Happy to, yeah, absolutely happy to own it. The question was about making things a little bit more concrete on when you know you're navigating away from, okay, I found product market fit, and now I need to figure out go to market fit. Are there particular numbers of users, revenue metrics that you're gauging to know I've got product market fit and now I need to find go to market fit? And how do you know once you showed us that chart of mobile iron? Is it when, 2 quarters of doubling or maybe like any numbers that you can give us to help approximate? Was that true to your?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Let me pull this apart. Okay. So the first one is like product market fit is, hey, I found 10 customers that had a repeatable use case that wanted to give me money and are reasonably happy with my product, like sort of roughly, like, you know, that's roughly product market fit. That does not mean you found go to market fit. So, at the tail end of your sort of winning your first 5, 10, 15, 20 customers, whatever it is, you got to start figuring out how do you build the repeatable recipe, which is go to market fit. And, you know, the picking a revenue number doesn't make any sense because everybody's got sort of different ticket sizes. It's much more about that transition from your first 10 or 20 customers that you found through founder-led selling to how do you build a repeatable recipe. That's sort of when you find when you need to start looking for go-to-market fit. I'll then get to the second part of your question, which is how do you know you found go-to-market fit? Interestingly, it has very little to do with number of users or revenue. It has everything to do with how you won that revenue. And I'll tell you one of the things that was a signal we found go-to-market fit is now we weren't doing PLG, we were doing a sales-led motion. The ramp time of my new reps shortened. You know, when you hire a new sales rep, they've got a ramp time to be able to get the full quota, like, 3 quarters or 2 quarters, whatever it is. We were able to add new reps and they got to full productivity really quickly. That's a sign that you found go-to-market fit is sort of your shortening ramp time of hiring new reps. The second way you can do it in a marketing-led or product-led growth is you will start to see the efficiency of your investments in sales and, in marketing and your product-led sales motion start to improve rapidly. So it really starts to show up in efficiency, which means you found that repeatable playbook and you found the urgency. That means you put more in, you get more out. And I'll tell you, like, if you look at this through the lens of an investor, like a Series A or Series B investor, they want to give you jet fuel, right? That's really what their job is to invest in your business to give you jet fuel. Now, they want to know you've built a repeatable recipe that if you pour jet fuel into the engine, you go faster. And so, most Series A, Series B investors, what they're really looking for is, have you found go-to-market fit? And so being able to say, hey, yes, our ramp time on hiring new reps is going down, or hey, our go-to-market efficiency is going up in these, in these segments, that's a sign you're on to go-to-market fit. It oddly has very little to do with sort of users and revenue. It's much more about efficiency.
Such a good question. Great answer as well. Chari, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, sorry, real quick. So you mentioned improving efficiency. We're a bit earlier stage, by the way, but I'm curious. If you're stuck there, how do you know that you're lacking product market fit or go-to-market fit?
Well, one of the ways you know you don't have go-to-market fit is if you hire a new rep and they struggle to get more efficient, like they never get to their full quota. Like, that's one way to see it. Another way is, honestly, you just kind of feel it. Like, you just feel like there's too much friction. You feel a little bit of headwinds. Like, I gave you some metrics to measure to look at it, which tend to be around sort of efficiency, because that means you've started to feed the repeatable playbook. If you haven't found it, you won't feel it. And I wish, like, I don't mean to be annoying about the answer, but it's kind of the truth. Like, as founders, you just kind of know, yeah, we haven't really found it yet. And when you find it, you're like, okay, I know we found it.
I
I wish
think
I had a more precise metric-driven answer, but you
I,
just feel it.
I might chime in. I think it's with product market fit. If no one's buying or wanting your product, even in long cycles, then it's like you don't have it. But go to market fit, it's more about the velocity, right? And to what Bob was saying is like the speed, you're doing it more quickly at a faster clip. Things are clicking. And so not only do people want to buy it, product market fit, you're able to get them to buy it at a
That's a
great.
good way to put it. Yeah, I like that. I'll totally use that for the better way to talk about it.
Julie, you had a follow on to this question, so I want to let you jump in. If do you want to ask, or I'm happy to. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to ask. I'm just going to scroll back up. So, to kind of piggyback on Charu's question, it was more, and you kind of answered it. What are the qualitative measures that you have PMF? Like, I think we're at early PMF stages where we have several handfuls of users who are signing in multiple times a week for 8-hour sessions. They're paying
Yep.
nominally, right? I would call it like design partner phase, so to speak. And now we're trying to, we're moving to the next step. We're just finishing up our seed. And kind of moving to these go-to-market experiments. And then my question was more like, again, we're trying to figure out, do we go PLG? Do we go SLG? There's kind of arguments for both. Making that decision is very tricky. And we're 3 people. So like, how do you do that with the resources that we have?
So how
So
do your customers decide to buy? Like if you look at sort of the first couple teaching customers you've been working with, like, and maybe you weren't paying attention during that part of the discussion because I know I wasn't in the beginning. But like
I
if you
was.
sort of think about like how did they decide to say, I'm going to use your product? Was it like 2 people involved? 1 person? 5? Like how many people were involved?
Yeah, it depends on the customer type. We've got people at defense contractors using it off book and paying for it on their own. Obviously, they have to go through a very difficult procurement process, and we're getting SOC 2 and ITAR compliant right now, so we'll get there. But the customers who are larger organizations are more on the SMB side, where the owner or a director of a group is buying for the group. And it's a 2 meeting process, and they can throw it on their company card, and it's not a crazy investment. So kind of both, which is the problem. Like
Yeah.
eventually, sales led is probably where we're going to go, but we're just trying to test some of the go-to-market motions using PLG, if that makes sense.
Okay. I'm going to add something to what I said earlier that may actually apply to you guys. Is one of the things Salesforce actually did this in the early days. They actually linked PLG and sales led growth. Their initial leads and effectively early users were all sales led growth. Like it was individual people saying, I want to use this to manage my contacts and manage my pipeline. And then they bolted a sales led motion onto the back of that. So the, you can actually link those 2 together as sales led is effectively the way you generate sort of almost like leads.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, product led is the way you generate low dollar leads for your sales led sort of company wide contracts.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. I think AJ had his hand up. AJ?
Yes. Hi, Bob. First of all, like, I really love the deck. I think it was the first time, like, I've listened to a lot of GTM webinars, and the way you laid out stuff was just amazing. Like, it just hit for me. Like, I got it. Question. So, we have had instances where we bundled a 60-day free trial, and we also set the expectation of when the trial ends, here's what we're expecting for you to pay for our services.
Mhm.
And both times we found there was a hesitancy even to start a trial when we put the pricing upfront. So my question is, I think you mentioned that
Mm.
maybe you should separate the trial from the paid contract. So my question is, do we keep that separate? Do we even mention the pricing? I mean, I think my whole thing is like, hey, you're doing a free trial. You can always negotiate at the end of the trial, I would think, if you're objecting to the pricing. But in this case, I found that they weren't even willing to start the trial because I wonder if they were scared by the pricing. And I'm curious your comments on this.
So first of all, I actually love that you figured that out. Like good on you for being able to discover that, hey, we're seeing some price resistance at the front end that sort of scares people from doing a trial. So that's actually good. I mean, that's actually good
Yeah.
insight as to what's actually happening. Like that's a good example of a pattern that I talked about
Right.
earlier. Right.
Right.
So, unfortunately, I don't have sort of a crisp recommendation on a solution for that because
Yeah.
the answer is sort of depends. I mean, part of it may be you could separate the trial from the pricing discussion, and sort of once people get addicted to the value, then they just suck up the price. So you're a little more quiet about it. Um, you might be getting some feedback on your pricing that maybe there's some price elasticity that you have where sort of lowering the price point or creating sort of tiers like a good, better, best tier where there's like a low price good and people can sort of very quickly upgrade to your
Yeah.
full boat. I don't have a specific
Well, my question is
recommendation on
maybe
that.
my question is should I just call it out and upfront and say, hey, start the trial if you still feel like the pricing is too high, we're willing to give you, we're willing to do what it takes, like something along
You
those
can do
lines.
you can do that in the early stages, like in the sausage making of finding product market fit. You could totally do that. Like, I mean, we're doing that at BlueRock right now. We're like, look,
Right.
our early design partners are going to get screaming deals. Don't sweat it. Blah blah blah. They ask us what your list price is. You say the list price, and you're like, yeah, early customers will get screaming deals. The problem is that doesn't really. You can't build a repeatable playbook with that though,
Right, right,
right?
right. But at
So
least by moving it to the trial and the customer using it, if they see the value, then then you could at least follow up and say, okay, how much would you pay for this value, right? Or you could quantify with the trial that you save time or dollars or we increase revenue.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, all those are
So
good options. I mean, you might also sort of think about creating two-tiered package pricing where there's like a low price entry that
yeah,
gets people over the emotional hump to say yes, but then they very quickly are like, oh, I got to upgrade to gold.
right.
Um,
Got it.
um, yeah,
Good.
good on you for figuring out that pattern. That's actually a hard pattern to pick up on.
Thank you.
Okay, Janu, you're up for your question.
Hey, great session. My question is, we have a product that's maybe in a little more of a nascent market, kind of like mobile iron. And there's a spectrum, right? There's some buyers, few of them that come in very knowledgeable, they know exactly what they want, right? There's other teams that see the potential, but they're like, there's a huge push to educate them, educate basically the whole committee around, stuff.
Yep.
How do you think about layering that into the process, or are there other levers like marketing materials or other things that can help with that push?
Uh, yeah. Look, in any market where it's a nascent market. There's not always a well-defined need that people understand. So you got a lot of market education stuff to do. The problem is market education takes time. Um, so if you sort of look at it through the lens of either whether it's Mobile Iron, my earlier company, or BlueRock, I've been working on now. At least what I found is customers tend to sort of self-select into ones that are a little more forward thinking and already sort of understand it and are willing to engage on it, and ones that need a lot of education. Unfortunately, like at least what I found as an early stage startup is it's a bitch to like do the early market education to convince somebody of a need they didn't know they had. Like that is an important part of long-term growth of your business, which is market education, analyst coverage, category creation, all those things. Like, in the beginning when Mobile Iron was there, like there wasn't really a category. So we had to sort of, created the category, and then customers were like, oh, I need to fill this spot on my shelf with a product. Let me go look for that. Right. Like, hey, that makes it a lot easier than the beginning. They're like, what do you do? Why do I care? Like, huh? Like, so
In the early
your
stages,
first 10 or 15,
focus.
20 customers are all going to be they already kind of understand or at least have some sort of inkling of what it is, the problem is you're solving and what they need it for. I'm sure there's exceptions to that, but yeah, it's part of the pain of a nascent market. But the upside of a nascent market is if you get to steer and define the category definition of a nascent market, that is a really powerful position to be in. And I have a hack for you on Gartner. Okay. So, oh crap, this is being recorded. Janu, email me at, well, all right, I'll give you the clue on this. So the way Gartner's clients aren't startups. They don't actually care what startups think. What they care about is what big enterprise customers are thinking about and wrestling with, and where big enterprise customers need advice. That's actually their business. So what I found with Gartner is the best way to influence them is to not go pitch them. The best way to influence them is ask them questions and use their inquiry process as a way to influence and get to know them, and rather than just like start up head-on pitching to them. And it worked. So as part of being sort of early category definition, a lot of this is actually getting the analyst to sort of be able to sort of define categories in ways that sort of are in your favor and not, in worst case, at least not against you. Early category creation's a pain in the butt, but man, if you can be part of it and nail it down, like it's a really powerful position to be in.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Bob, I think this is a special trait, not only you sharing about all your past experiences, but literally your currently lived experience with everything that you're building at BlueRock. It's amazing.
Yeah, we haven't found product market fit yet. So, I mean, we got our early prototype customers, like it's early. So, it's the classic sausage making. So, but it's fun.
It's so cool to catch you in this moment in time. I'm so excited. Yeah, for everything that you shared. But I have a final question for you. This is a question we ask all of our guests on Winning Wednesdays. You know how hard it is. You're literally going through the early stages of finding product market fit. So what would you say is the secret recipe for maintaining a winning mindset and driving momentum in the face of challenges? So in those dark days of sausage making, what keeps you motivated and your team motivated?
So, everybody's a little different on this one. I just talk about how that works for me. So for me, number one, I'm kind of an eternal optimist. Sometimes it bites me in the butt, but I'm just wired as an optimist. I think things can be better. You can make things better. Like there's always, I'm just sort of wired that way. The second thing is just believing that you can make a difference. Look, that's the reason why I came back to start BlueRock. Ashar Aziz, who was the founding CEO of FireEye, and I started it together. And we did it because we were just frankly pissed off and thought we could make the world a little better. And it's we feel like we can make a difference, and that's why we're doing it. So that's that kind of foundation allows you to deal with sort of the ups and the downs that inevitably come. One of the best pieces of life advice I ever got, believe it or not, was from a skydiving instructor. So it turns out, like when you go skydiving, your adrenaline goes through the roof and it's noisy and scary. And like a lot of people get to the ground and they don't remember their jump. It happens a lot. So the best advice I got from the skydiving instructor was like, your adrenaline's going to go up. There's going to be noise, stimulation, so many things going on. Slow your brain down and take mental pictures. And I think it's a great analogy for building a startup because like the ups and the downs, the energy, everything, like it's nuts. And my one piece of sort of personal advice for all of you guys is periodically slow your brain down and take mental pictures so that you actually remember the journey. There's a lot of founders I talk to that look back and they're like, man, I don't really remember the first 3 years of my company. So periodically slow your brain down and take pictures.
That's a really helpful analogy and great advice. Thank you so much, Bob, for your time today, for your insights, for your wisdom. I'm sure all of us are going to go check out all the resources on Survival to Thrival. And yeah, this is amazing. Thanks, everyone, for making the time to be here. I hope you feel one step closer to winning after hearing all of Bob's advice, and hope to catch you in the next Winning Wednesday. Have a great day,
Good luck,
everyone.
everybody.
Thanks,
All
Bob.
right.
Thanks,
Bye,
Anna.
everyone.
Bye.